Hi everyone, this is Blake Anderson, and in this video I'm going to show you how I created this animation that rotates in Cinema4D. So I'm going to go step by step how you can create this kind of animation for yourself using, this animation that rotates. I used Redshift and I used different glass elements and wood elements as well as aluminum. So I'll also show you the lighting setup in terms of how I created the neon look that I got from this video. And I'll also show you how you can use Magic Bullet Looks, which is an add-on if you have Maxon 1, that you can kind of create a more cinematic or film look to your renders in Cinema 4D. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe. Thanks and have a great day.
Hi everyone, I'm in Cinema 4D, and what I have here is three cloners that are made up of capsules, pyramids, and spheres, and they rotate around, sphere that's made out of glass. And in the backdrop, what I have this kind of neon or neo look, which is from Greyscalegorilla. And what I did is I just used one of their Light Kit Browser Plus lights. And so when you go into the Light Kit browser, you can, what I did is I went into the Pop Studios, and I liked this look of the this neon right here. So I selected that. Actually, no, sorry, it was the Miami Vice look. And I also, though, put along the lights here on the S-curve. So if I pull out of the camera, you can see that there's this S-curve nebula picture that I purchased online. So that kind of gives it this look that's almost in space, but it's very subtle, I would say. So if I go back to the camera, what the camera does is it's, gonna zoom in and it's gonna go right into the globe. But I guess what I want to show you is how you can do this yourself. So I'm going to start very small and show you how you can do this yourself. So first, I would say is just you start with a sphere, right? So I think everyone knows how to build a sphere in Cinema 4D. What I do is I create a sphere. And so what we want to do is we want to create these, alternating patterns of these, the sphere, pillf, and this kind of pyramid. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to shrink this. Like I can go into the dimensions of the sphere, and you can, let's say it's 25. Maybe we'll actually say it's 15. And that's closer to what I have here, right? Once you do that, is you're going to have a sphere, and then you're going to create a pyramid. So the same thing you do is you create a pyramid here, and then you can also create a capsule, right? And then what you're going to do is you're going to create a cloner. So in order to create a cloner, you're going to go in here, and then the first thing you're going to do is you're going to put your sphere in the cloner, and it's going to naturally create a grid. But what we want here is linear. And then I guess in this case, you want to change the axis that the is on. And then you can also create the count. So, how many circles you're going to get. What I'm going to show you is how you can alternate these three, right? So once you go into the cloner, you have radial. So actually, before I showed it here, I said linear, right? But actually, I think it's radial. So let's just show you here. You go to radial, and that's going to create these circles like this. But what I want to do is I want to create a larger radius, and then I want to increase the count. So this way, here, I'll pull it out of the, so I'll pull it out here. You can see that you can create the amount of count of how many segments you want. Go into cloner, click into how many counts you want in terms, let's just say here we want 14, but we want to create the radius. And in order for it to be similar to this, I want to put it on, I think here, yeah, the XY axis. And I could, zoom this down a little bit using the scale tool. But yeah, again, is what you're going to do is you're going to create a cloner. Once you've created a capsule, a pyramid, a sphere, you're going to make them a child of the cloner. And then you're going to make sure that the cloner has the radial, and then you want to iterate it. And here I put the count of 20, this inner one here. And I'm just going to erase this for now. Yeah, I have the pyramid here, a count of 20. But the key here is, let me just see here. It's on the ZY axis, and what else to show you? Oh, okay, so, and the start angle and the end angle. So you can see here, this is the second step. So, I guess what I need to show too is how that these kind of, see, these cloners could be you could put them randomly so that they show up randomly. You could blend them. You could sort them. And but I did here is I iterate them, so they're going to occur in this order, right? Just as a pattern. And then in order to animate this, so you see how the video zooms in, and the way I did that is I went to, you know, the first frame here, and I started the end angle at 120. So once you go in the cloner, you go to the end angle, see the full amount of the ring is 360, right? And then I just started at, I think, yeah, 120. And then I zoomed in, I think it was to like 90 here. And then I made it 360. So, you know, as the camera zooms in, it's going to also rotate. And then basically once I created that, I just duplicated the cloner twice, right? So I created the rings farther out. And in order to make it farther out, I just used the scale tool. And I changed slightly the end angle when it animates, but that's basically what I did. And then the final thing to discuss is the materials, right? So I'm using here the Redshift Render, and as part of the Redshift you know, render, I'm going to create the Redshift materials. So in the new Cinema4D, in the new build, which is, I guess, Cinema4D 2023, they automatically will create a new RS material every time you create a new material, once you have, you know, your Redshift set as your render. What I did is, in order to create these different materials of these different elements in my scene, I just kept it very simple. So for the pill, I did, I think, was aluminum, and then I just dropped, you know, the aluminum onto the pill right here. So I think you can use steel or aluminum. And then in order for me to create the pyramid, I just, you know, used the glass. And you can change, you know, the different attributes or the parameters here, but I would just suggest playing around if you want, but add that to the pyramid. And in the other situation, I did the wood, so I just pulled that from my browser here and just added wood. So let's see here, what do we have for wood? I think I just used one of these as part of Cinema4D, but you can use also Redshift wood material. But that's what I did, is I add that to the sphere. And for the glass, I did the same thing for the middle sphere, and I added a little bit of dispersion, I believe it was, to the glass. Let me look here. So I added, so if I want to go into that, I go, yeah. So I create a little bit of dispersion. So that what that does is that kind of creates a little bit of, you know, I guess a dispersion of light, I believe it is, and it kind of creates a cool effect. So it allows it, you kind of round the circle a bit. I can show you quickly what it renders as. Let's see here, take a small, yeah, so you can see that there's some slight, you know, dispersion that is occurring. And so what I did is, my last thing I'm going to show you is just how I set up my render. You can set up in 4K, 29 frames per second, or you can, you know, Ultra HD 4K, 23 frames per second. You know, you save it as a movie file, MP4 or a movie file. I think movie is probably a better quality. And, you know, created it in depth of 16-bit. And then for the render, you know, you can go into the basic. I put it as high. You go into advanced. My system can handle it, so I sometimes put it to 512. And what else to show you? And then the magic bullet looks is the final kind of piece. It's kind of the almost like the spice that you can put on your you know, final render. And so when you click into magic bullet looks, it's going to open up it's the console. And, you know, on this side, it's just going to give you all the example of the different looks that you want to use. And then you can also use different tools. You know, it is very, I guess, variety and very, yeah, varied in terms of what it offers in terms of the tools. I think in this case, I added a bit of noise back into the scene because, you know, the digital look can look a little bit too artificial maybe at times. So I wanted to create a bit of noise. I added a bit of mojo, which is kind of gives it that little bit of that cinematic or film look. I added a little bit more exposure just because I thought the scene was maybe a bit dark. And I added a little bit of halation as well. Lens vignette was also added, and these rest of these attributes were from the look I started with. And normally what I do is I'll create just a subtle effect. I don't want to overdo it, so I just put it as 17. I just want it just slightly touch on it on the image. And then I guess the one other thing to show you is just making sure that your output, you set the frame range. So in this case, you can use all frames, but I set just to 0 to 120, but make sure it's not just on current frame, because then it'll just render one frame. But if you want to create an animation in a movie, you're going to have to ensure that it's set to movie and that all frames are selected, which is something I had to figure out the hard way, I guess. So once you have that, you're just going to render your scene, and voila, you have an animated render.